Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, May 26th. Start over just in case. Hello, everyone. It's Thursday, May 26th. This is the weekly Backdrop outreach meeting. As is our practice, I will start out. We'll go around the room. Everyone give their name, their location, maybe add a few words if you're interested in something in particular. I'm Robert Lang, bug holder on the internet, coming to you from Altadena, California. And I'll pass the baton over to Sarvashri.
My name is Sarvashri. I'm in Walnut Cove, North Carolina, and I'm interested in bringing new people in to Backdrop and helping get them started. Let's go to Martin.
Hi, I'm Martin in the UK, Yorkshire Pudding on the internet. I'm involved in outreach over LinkedIn. And yeah, just like helping out where I can. I'll go to Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Lampton, joining from Oakland, California, and I'll turn it over to Tim.
That was quick. This is Tim. Checking to make sure I'm not muted. I'm not. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and yeah, it's been a busy week. And since I sometimes give wildlife updates, some of you might have noticed I had an exciting client meeting a couple days ago when a black bear appeared outside my window with 3 cubs. So that was my big. So if I'm distractedly looking out the window today, I'm watching for a return.
I didn't know they had black bears there.
We don't see they're around. We don't see them often, but I had the most amazing encounter from inside my house. Jen, if you haven't seen it, look to my Facebook page. There's a great video. Anyways, anybody is welcome to go to my Facebook page and check out. And if you need me to friend you or something, let me know. But I don't use Facebook a lot, but this seemed Facebook worthy. So there's a really great video of me about 8 inches from a bear through the glass window as it tried to get to the bird feeder. I think that's it for everybody, right? So I was about to post the stream link into Zulip. I'm going to do that right now. There we go. That's done. And we can go ahead and start the meeting. Let's talk about, so 2 things we talked about on our, or one thing went on our agenda is talk about the CiviCRM update. And why don't we just go ahead and start with that? Robert, tell us where we're at with CiviCRM and what the blocker is.
Yeah. So we were having just one issue, which was a task, which was in my court to put together the specific plan of what fields we were going to move from Backdrop user accounts into CiviCRM. And we had netted out that there were very few that needed to be moved, so it wouldn't be a big thing. And that's still to be done, because then I got sidetracked by discovering another CiviCRM issue with our beta CiviCRM site, which is that cron has never run for CiviCRM. And that led to the discovery that the CiviCRM instructions for how to configure cron via HTTP, first, it's not documented specifically for Backdrop, and it doesn't work for Backdrop because of some unusual things about differences between how Backdrop and Drupal handle. And so I posted a bug report on the Backdrop CiviCRM's GitLab site, and which is I will put the posting in the chat, and it really requires a change in CiviCRM. So which means changing CiviCRM core and making corresponding changes in all of the other CMS specific bits. And of course, I could be wrong on this, I mean, the solution that seemed like the right way to do it involved all of those things, small changes, nevertheless changes everywhere. So where I left off is when the City CRM admins suggested that I try to do that. And then I got sidetracked by other things. So that's where we're at. And I guess I would invite anyone else to, especially people who have more City CRM experience, to look at that and chime in if they see that we're missing something. But it looks like that's something that we should solve if we're going to use a HTTP call to activate cron on City CRM. There's other ways to do cron, so we could potentially work around using other ways. But that seemed like a straightforward way.
So I am using one of the command line utilities on one of my other sites to run it directly. Like you specify the location of PHP and then the location of the Civi whatever, and it seems to work out okay. We could definitely do that on one of our servers, but I also am interested in getting a fix to the actual problem. I don't think it should be a blocker for us, but I think we should keep pushing on it. And I was also shocked when I realized my backdrop site wasn't running cron, because as a backdrop person, I would never think that Civi would have its own unique way of doing things that doesn't have anything to do with backdrops cron. And I know that Civi has its own, it's a standalone program now, and it has to have a cron that works on WordPress. But it seemed very strange to me that it didn't use the internal cron hook to run whatever it normally needs to do on cron. I don't know if that's even an option. I don't know if you've brought that up at all, but it's my first thought.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't bring it up in the queue. I think I remember seeing that there's either a Civi CRM extension or a contrib module that binds the Civi CRM cron job to the backdrop or Drupal cron hook. So
Okay.
that might also be okay if one is running the cron on the same schedule. If you can tolerate the hourly run. On our site that we do Civi CRM on, we actually run the Civi CRM job a lot more often because when it processes batches of emails, it'll send out, we want to send out lots of bursts of emails, but not all in one cron job. So they're on different schedules, but that would also be a workaround. I'm gonna go look for, see if I can find that contrib or extension, whatever it was.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be good in general, but I also wonder if the Civi CRM people thought about that and specifically decided that that would not be a good default behavior, or if they're just at a point where it's we already have our own solution, why would we bother implementing anything else? Or if they haven't thought about it at all. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's worth a separate issue, and I'll be happy to open that so it doesn't get mixed up with this one. But yeah, I was really surprised. I'm what do you mean cron's not running? Cron runs just fine. Backdrop says it's fine. And Civi's not my cron. I was what? Oh, it's different. Okay, but yeah, thank you for working that. I also saw your issue come in at this exact same time that my site was running into the problem. So I was oh, Robert's already fixed everything for me. So that was great that you'd already gone through and you documented it all so well. So thank you so much for working on that. And yeah, I think we can move forward in any of the possible ways, but getting it resolved would be great too.
Let's make sure our other Civi CRM backdrop crossovers know about this issue and can help.
Yeah.
I didn't see Herb or Laren involved in that discussion at all yet. And let's make sure they're at least aware of it. Okay. So this in the agenda here, I said the current blocker, but you've said it's really not necessarily a blocker. I mean, do we want to wait till at least we have a better idea of this, or do we want to just proceed with a workaround?
I think we should proceed with a workaround and put a link somewhere, either in our patches file or somewhere else that just indicates that we're using this workaround, and when X issue gets fixed, we should revisit. So it'd probably be my preference.
Robert, do you have what you need to work on the workaround?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we know how to fix it, so we could just have our own patch our version of Civi CRM
Okay.
to do this. and then I think it'll be good.
There
Okay.
is going to be a new version of Civi CRM released next week that we're going to need to update to. So maybe we should wait and do the patch after that comes out, or at least work on the patch against the future version so that we don't have to do it again.
in a
Yeah.
week. Yeah. Well, which brings us to once the patch is in, what's the next step?
Then the next step, I guess, is to go back and there's probably some code that needs to be written to move information from the user account fields to Civi CRM contacts. I think that's straightforward, but I haven't actually done it. So
I was able to do that on my site rather than writing a script, which you can do to like update directly. I just did an export with a view to a CSV file and then an import into Civi CRM with that same file. And if you do that immediately, you can pretty much guarantee that there aren't going to be any changes in the user records. And you can also redo it again. So if you do it once and everything imports and you think somebody might have changed their user profile data, you can do it again and see if there are any changes. And if there aren't, then you know that nothing changed between making the two. But I found that to be a lot easier than writing the code because the export you can set up with views pretty easily and the import to Civi is built in.
Okay, thank you. I'll go look into that.
This is kind of great for me because I just went through almost all of these exact same processes where I had an existing Backdrop site and I had to add Civi to it. And so I'm like, oh, I just did this. So it's great that we get to do it for Backdrop right away before I forget everything. So.
Okay. Sounds like we have some next steps for it. I got briefly distracted. So once you've got this patch, what is the next step? Remind me.
So, patch for cron.
Yep.
And then process to export data to Civi CRM. And then I think then the next step after that will be install Civi on p.org and run the process and then run the export. Oh, and set up the cron job.
I think once we get it installed, we might need to do some cleanup on the user profile edit form because what's there now is super heavily customized. And so we should just make sure that when the Civi stuff shows up there, it doesn't end up in like weird places. Yeah, just to make sure it looks okay. And I'm happy to help with that. I think I wrote a lot of that original customization and would be happy to review it if necessary.
Okay. Let's use the next outreach meeting to follow up and keep this going. Is there anything you need from anyone else right now to do those things, Robert, that you haven't asked for already?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
If I come up with something, I'll holler on Zoom.
Sure. Let us know in Zulip or wherever, or reach out to some of us individually and let us know you need help. Otherwise, let's check back in 2 weeks at the next outreach meeting to see how that's going. We had a separate series of meetings earlier to work specifically on this, but I think we're close enough that maybe we can just use a little bit of time in the outreach meetings to keep it moving, if that makes sense to folks. Anything, is that it for Civi CRM? Martin, you mentioned that you were working, that you are our LinkedIn guy. How's LinkedIn going? I haven't checked in lately.
It's all right. We're getting a reasonable amount of views across the various posts that we send.
Have we been sending them?
Sorry?
Have we been sending posts? Have you been getting some content out?
I sent one for the let's see, what are the recent ones?
The release? Did you
the
announce
release?
the
I did one for the release.
Okay.
And I think the one before that was one before that was about a post by Larin about why backdrops are good fit for that. So linking to that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we get like a good like a couple of hundred of impressions across. Did one around the Stanford, saying how it's the value for money. So it's all trying to, and then before that there was loads for Backdrop Live, but so I'm not doing loads, but as and when I see a good opportunity, I'm trying to get something out, and we're getting a reasonable amount, and I try and kind of make it relevant to the audience, and sort of focus on the things that either site builders or business owners looking for a website, things that matter to them. So I try and focus on those. We get a couple of hundred of organic impressions, that's where people sort of like or comment or share it, and so it appears in their feed and other people see it. So it's all good. But yeah, there's not lots of activities going on there. We've got we got a reasonable, let's see how many, got 35 total followers at the moment.
Okay. Well, we haven't been active on there very long, so
No.
that's good. Just in terms of other social media, we did tweet about the release, but Twitter, I've been pretty quiet on Twitter lately, which I don't know, maybe is a welcome relief from our followers, because I went through a pretty vocal period shortly before that. And probably it's going to get noisy again with Backdrop Live maybe coming up. So maybe a little pause doesn't hurt. And Facebook, I think, has been pretty dead. We should, I should make it a point to get a Facebook post out about the release, because I don't think we've posted the release on Facebook yet. So, well, let me make a note of that.
Is it time for the newsletter this week?
Yeah.
So we should do a blog post, newsletter, all that, probably more important than Facebook.
Yes.
So I don't know where we're at on any of the other stuff, but maybe.
Well, the original blog post is out. I mean, just with, although,
Great.
if people want to look, I didn't really get a lot of feedback on that. I didn't ask for a lot of, I didn't ask for any feedback. I just posted it on release day. Oh, excuse me. But I
did
do
link
welcome
to it from LinkedIn. So.
I do welcome feedback, and if anybody has any feedback, we can update the blog post. I just did some screenshots and some highlights of some of the key features. We didn't do a feedback post in the forum either. It just occurred to me, which we have sometimes done, or usually done, although it doesn't always. And once in a while, we get some feedback there, so that might be a good idea to add that. So Facebook needs an update, and we need a newsletter.
Yeah, this looks fantastic, Tim.
Yeah, I thought the blog post looked really good. So
Yeah.
I just linked to it straight from LinkedIn and just drew out a couple of points.
Right.
Yeah.
The kind of feedback probably that, well, first of all, there could just be spelling or grammatical errors. There usually are that people catch. So please, if you see any, just fix them if you can, or let us know in Zulip and we'll fix them. The other thing would be omissions. If there's something you think that I just missed that's really important. I mean, I really just picked a few issues and focused on them. So anyways. So in terms of the newsletter, what, besides the usual, is there anybody have any thoughts on what we should do with the newsletter? Anything different, any ideas, or just get it
I
out?
think we, yeah, pull the previous template, copy the
Sure.
cards from the blog post and announce Backdrop Live and yeah, send it out.
Well, I hesitate to say this because I don't want this to become a blocker, but it would be nice to get registration working, which is pretty trivial to get it working, but I don't
Yeah.
think it is. I know that like last time I kept putting it off thinking it was going to be a bigger deal. And then we finally just sort of, it took like 5 minutes to get it working. So I think I've been afraid to go to the event site because I feel like I left it in a mess after the last Backdrop Live, but I'm not sure that's true.
Okay.
So what we need, Jen, if you have any time to just help make sure to just sort of clean up the site and which may not be, maybe let's take a quick look at it together.
I do think I looked at it after you shut everything down last time, and I did stuff like create the node for the July camp and stuff, but I didn't see anything in there that looked problematic. I think we
Okay.
should be able to just turn it on again and have it work, so.
I remember I did go to it once and there was something like this, like we should get
remove the,
we should get rid of that link because
Yeah.
it looks like it's the next Backdrop Live and it's really the
Yeah.
last one.
okay,
But that might be it. And then, yeah, the front page content is probably fine. I mean, if we have time, we could look and see if there's any updating, but there's nothing inaccurate probably about it. About the date. Okay, we got a little HTML here, but it does at least clarify that that's when the last one was. Yeah, some little tweaks. So there's probably not as much work. This might be 15 minutes of work to get registration going. So maybe we should just do that.
okay.
I've, for the last week and a half been thinking about that. Like I should just go do that, but I've had other Backdrop projects that I have been focused on. Let's quit sharing my screen again. Okay, so ideally get the registration live, get the newsletter out, mention Backdrop Live. Is there newsletter? Anything else that should go in the newsletter? Well, gosh. So something that I mean, it's probably not a huge deal, but I think there's a little bit of marketing value in it is that we're really close to a beta release of organic groups. RG Piano has been working super hard on organic groups the last couple weeks, and particularly in the last week, really getting it ready for a beta release. And that might be newsletter worthy if we can get that out before, even if it's not out, just mentioning that it's that close might be worth it. Does that seem reasonable to mention that or is that should we wait till we have an official beta release before we mention it in a newsletter?
I mean, I think the kinds of people who subscribe to our newsletter aren't necessarily developers. They're the people who want to see things that work.
Right.
So without a button where they can try it,
Right.
like an installer module version, then I don't think it's necessarily worth putting in the newsletter. But if you have something somewhere that people could test, it could be a good thing. That's like, it's almost ready, try it here. And then they can click a link and do it. So it just depends on where it's at when we're ready to make release.
I think I might check with RG Piano about, and I'm spacing its name. Never mind. I'll check with him and see like how close we are. He mentioned in Zulip like within a week, and maybe I can pin him down. Maybe well, let's see how this weekend. I mean, I don't think we're gonna get the newsletter up before Monday, anyways. Tell you what, I'm gonna shoot for Monday for the newsletter, and then I'll ask him if there's any chance we'll have something to announce by then. If anybody else has anything else, let's put a note in Zulip. Jen, can you put a note in Zulip just asking
Sure.
if anybody has newsletter items?
Sure.
That we can mention. So we should mention our office hours continue to happen on a regular basis, which is amazing. They're usually 2 to 4 people, sometimes the same people. Martin's been a regular. Wilbur's hosting them. I show up as often as I can. We occasionally get to drop in, like Diane dropped in yesterday. We're not getting new people. Even when I tweet about it, it's been pretty rare, even if we go back 4 or 5 months. It's not unheard of, but maybe once a month we get somebody sort of out of the blue that just sort of pops in. I don't know if anybody has any ideas, if there's something more we could be doing with office hours to promote them. I mean, I think I always kind of envision them as an opportunity for somebody investigating or researching backdrop that might have some questions and just want to talk to a person. And it doesn't seem to be getting that audience. And I don't know if that's just because we're not getting the word out well enough, or if that's really not a need that people have. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I do recall wondering about whether we should do some campaign on LinkedIn, whether just as a kind of promoting about what it is, but then also whether to think about if we want to encourage any topics. I quite like that it's this kind of miscellany, and you don't know what you're going to get, and it's about addressing whatever people needs are at the time. So I'm reticent about having any kind of subject, but there's possibility for kind of I've got an idea for a kind of hook about what a post could look like, and explain how drawing on, you often like to call in and see a business before doing whether we'll talk to people who use this system if you're interested. So
would you be able to write a blog post, Martin, sort of about office hours? And it could be a little bit of like how and why you participate, but also like an invitation for other people to join.
Yeah, I'll have a go. Yeah.
And then we might be able to use that to just sort of try to generate. I mean, I suspect that if we really sort of hit the social media for even a few days or a week, more than just really the only thing we've been doing to promote them is we put them in the calendar every week. And sometimes I tweet about them. On a good week, I tweet a couple days ahead, but oftentimes just a half an hour ahead. And I think we could do a little bit more than that. And I think that would probably get 1 or 2 other people, but I don't know. Some interesting stuff does happen from time to time. I used it yesterday to show off something I was working on to Martin.
Yeah.
And then actually, Martin, right after you left, Diane came and I showed her. And Diane and I talked about that project for about 45 minutes. So, and she gave me some good feedback, which inspired me to keep working. So, So they've been productive in that sense for me. That's how I use them, is to sort of bring along projects and just get a chance to check in and talk with people real informally. Anything else?
Yeah, I've used it to get pointers on setup or particular challenges that I've been looking at, and sometimes just having a number of people to bounce ideas off is quite useful. So
Okay. So other outreach stuff. We should maybe let's come back to Backdrop Live. We need to start making that an active part of our agenda. So we're going to get the registration up and start promoting it. If we get that done in the next few days, I think we'll be ahead of schedule, but we're not that far ahead of schedule. In fact, I'm just realizing that we're only about 6 weeks out. So if we don't, so let's, yeah, it would be great to just get registration up and sort of start promoting it now. You, Martin, a few weeks ago, you suggested having a place where people could start dropping topics. Did we?
Yeah.
Did anything happen with that?
We've got a
A
forum.
forum post.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's promote that forum post. Well, or actually, if we get the site going, we can
Yeah. We can
encourage people
with
to start
stuff
putting their ideas on the site.
It's I think actually you've contributed to it, so
Well, I've had more ideas in the last couple of days. Jen, for somebody, if somebody isn't actually registering, is there a way right now to suggest a topic? And do you have a thought about like just suggesting a topic without registering? Or should we?
I don't think that's possible right now. I don't have any strong feelings about not allowing it.
could you,
What would that look like? Would it be?
I mean, I think what we were missing last time, and I'm not sure we ever set this up, was a list where administrators could see all of the recommended topics that people who had registered had requested. And I think that if we split that across two things, like if we have a web form and I don't know, that's my instinct was to do some kind of a web form and registration list, it could be a little hard to manage. It's not that hard, but I don't know. I feel like I have mixed feelings. Does anyone else have strong feelings on whether we should not allow people to recommend a topic if they're not attending? Or if they don't know yet if they're attending, or?
I mean, it could be that what we're doing right now is fine. I mean, which is just having a forum post, right? That where on the actual website, we do expect you to log in. I think the idea was that, certainly before registration was live, it was nice to just have a place where if somebody had an idea that they just wanted to remember it, where they could go. Once registration is open, maybe we don't really need, maybe then it is reasonable to limit it to like people who registered.
Yeah, I think I would rather focus on making it easier for people to register immediately than building in alternate reasons for that. What were you going to say, Martin?
Yeah, there might be a bit of a chicken and egg situation in that you might get people holding off registering because they're not sure that it's going to have the topics that they're interested in. That was the only thought I had around that. I appreciate the challenges of managing the data from two different sources. So yeah, we've got the forum post. So if we can, we could promote that as a secondary thing for.
I mean, the chicken and egg thing you're talking about, Martin, is just inevitable in an unconference, right? Yeah. And we've grappled with that since the beginning. And, that's why we try to put, like, we have a list of topic ideas on the front page of the site. These are the kinds of things to give people a sense of the kinds of content that might appear. And it's why we do, once registration is open, we could,
Yeah.
we can, get that schedule.
Yeah.
Forgive me, I'm having a brain fart now again.
Mm.
Did we get it to the point where people could schedule their own sessions?
Yeah.
If we
Yeah,
opened
we
up the
did.
schedule, people could,
Yeah.
no,
One thing.
is it
one
there
thing
now?
Don't think it's set up for the next one. One thing I do think we need to address, I think I had sort of concerns at a few sessions. It wasn't made clear that these were sort of intended for more kind of intermediate advanced users. And we did have feedback related to that as well, to say we should actually make it clear whether something is suitable for a beginner, or whether you need to be a bit more advanced, or whether it's how technical it is, because sometimes if you wanting to get into technical but you've got people who just what's the command line, it then isn't as good for the people who want to get into the really technical stuff.
Yeah, we can definitely add a field there for experience level.
Yeah, we can, and I understand that problem, but Jen, as a conference organizer, you probably recognize that in Twin Cities Drupal Camp, this came up all the time, which is how do we designate levels? But it's so hard because you don't, and especially you don't always know, and especially in an unconference, right? We could say, we're going to talk about, updating websites. And if a bunch of beginners show up, it could be a really beginner topic. If it's just a bunch of advanced people, it could be a very advanced topic, right? The discussion can really go in either direction. So some things are going to be, if we're talking about command line development tools, that's from the outset a more advanced topic, I suppose. But although, if a beginner shows up at that topic and says, explain it to me like I'm an absolute beginner, it could turn into a beginner topic, right? So but I think there are things we could do to help, with that.
We could have the people who know for sure it's one way or other could designate it, and then we could add another option that's like, depends on who's there.
Sure.
Or what do you want it to be? Or something like that.
I like that. But it's hard, often conference organizers sometimes try to do that themselves, right? Is go through and categorize the submissions. And it's not an easy task, and a little bit subjective. Probably the biggest idea that came out of the last Backdrop Live that we haven't talked about since is it's the perennial discussion about recording and how to manage that. And we had a couple of ideas that we talked about right after the last Backdrop Live, one of which was to have a certain block that is going to be recorded. The other idea was to have a day, a week ahead of Backdrop Live, where if people wanted to record sessions, they could. We'd schedule it, and if people wanted to come and watch the recording of the sessions, they could, but it could be somebody just recording their own session. We felt like part of the problem, I think, is that some people have the intention to record sessions, but given the lack of any structure around that, they never get recorded before the event, and maybe just providing a day and a schedule would help people, encourage people to do that. I don't know if anybody else has thought about this since the last Backdrop Live. Are there any thoughts on this? Okay. I feel like because this keeps coming up, I feel like we should do something along these lines, but which it is, I don't have strong feelings. I don't know. I'm really torn between the two of just taking one particular block and saying this will be the block that we record, or or the other idea to try it, which is just, I don't know. I kind of like I'm interested in the idea of having I don't think we'd get a lot of people to do it. I mean, if we scheduled a day, say a week ahead, and said we're going to record sessions, and if we had 4 people record sessions, I would consider that kind of a victory. So it isn't like it would be a big event. The other thing I like about it is it's just sort of an alternative opportunity for people to engage with Backdrop Live that maybe aren't available the following week or something. So, but it's extra logistics. It's also, I know it's going to confuse some people. They're going to say, what do you mean? There's 2 different dates. And, I'm not sure if we'll end up creating more confusion than it's worth if we try that. Anybody?
I think it lends itself more to where you've got a kind of a demonstration followed by discussion, and you record the demonstration.
That is how we have it set up now.
Possibly, yeah.
We just don't get people to do the work ahead of time.
Well, Martin, I don't know if were you suggesting, Martin, that we record part of the session at Backdrop Live, like record the first part and not the second, which is that what your idea was?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
I just have a problem with that because I think like making the decision to turn off the recording isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I'm easy either way. So.
If we had to make a choice, Jen, and or Martin or Robert or Sarvashri, between designating one block of our current schedule as the recorded block or breaking it out completely, are you leaning one way or another? What do you think would work better?
Given, I think you make an excellent point about having 2 dates might confuse people. So I think having a block might be might be a simpler if we were to do it. That would be the way I'd lean.
I think what we could do is try and designate a block, maybe like a prime block on the first day. And if we don't end up getting any content, we don't get anyone who wants to do a presentation instead of a discussion, we can switch it back. And that way we sort of allow people the freedom to do the more standard presentation format. And then if we don't end up getting any takers, we can still use that time for however we end up needing to use it at the end.
Well, I was going to say it could be optional during that block, except that what we don't want to happen then is for it to fill up with people that don't plan to record. So maybe what we do is we say, I think what you were alluding to, Jen, is that in advance, we plan for that to be all recorded, but then if there's any time slots left in the last couple of days, we just fill them up with unrecorded discussions.
Yeah. The only risk there is that you might end up with people who are like, oh, I'm not going to attend this block. And then all of the content ends up being stuff they could have attended anyway. But I think that's fine. We usually send an email out like the day before, and then we could send a reminder if that changed. And I think the number of people who are going to miss the content, I don't know. I think it's still worth the opportunity of getting the recording sessions.
Okay. So is then the working hypothesis that we're going to have the first prime block would be recorded, and initially the expectation would be that's when we schedule recorded sessions, but then X number of days beforehand we say, okay, any open slots can be used for non-recorded as well. Is that? And I think we could go a week ahead, because if you're planning to do a structured presentation and you haven't scheduled it a week before, maybe it's safe then to just open up the schedule.
Yeah, I would say at least a week. Also, it could be tricky for people who like want to attend the not recorded sessions. Like I would rather have it be like, okay, we're going to do this block. And if that doesn't work, we'll be like, okay, we'll do these 2 sections. If that doesn't work, we do this 1 section. So that way there's a very clear, like, if you don't want to get caught on camera talking about Backdrop, this is the time window that you miss, and not have it be like, well, we've got 1 session going in this room that's safe and then 2 in this. So people don't have to think about that when they're choosing which sessions to attend.
I gotcha. Okay.
But I
Okay,
think, yeah,
well-
we can make that, just, we can talk about it, 2 weeks
Okay.
out, 1 week out as it comes up. I
Okay.
think for now, starting off, at least for like getting our blockers out of the way, let's just pick a section, a whole block, and say this whole block is reserved for recording, live broadcast sessions, video and audio. And that way everybody will know upfront what we're expecting from them if they want to schedule something in that slot. And if we see someone offer to do a session that we think would be a good fit for that, we could say, hey, are you comfortable doing this in a video recording session with a live broadcast? And then potentially move them into that designated time slot too.
Were we going to keep the same schedule otherwise?
I'm okay with the same schedule. I don't
Okay.
think we had any complaints. I mean, there was a lot of ideas about different ways we could do the breaks, but I don't think there was,
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessary. I think it was
Right.
just sort of brainstorming.
Right.
So,
No, I think there was more sentiment in favor of our current schedule, with a few ideas like, oh, we could try X, but I didn't have the sense that anybody felt real strongly about any of those
yeah.
proposals. So I would say I was going to say block A, but maybe block B would be a good one.
Yeah, I think block A, because it starts really early and we often have the intro session,
Right.
might not be a good fit because we want everybody to be there, and so we
Right.
can announce, hey, by the way, the next block, and I don't I don't think we should do that with like cameras on. Be like, by the way, you should leave right now and miss everything
Yeah.
we're about to say if you don't want to be here. So yeah, I think the second block is probably a better option, especially if that's a good time.
Well, it looks like it had the most sessions last time, so
Okay.
that was
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
the busiest block. So then I like where you sort of landed, I think, Jen, which is let's just plan on using this as everything's recorded, and reevaluate as we get close. If we're not having enough sessions, figure out how to handle it. But let's not announce. I guess what I'm saying is just not announce in advance, like, oh, at the last minute we're going to be changing this.
Yeah.
Because that might cause hesitancy, and it might be better to just have people plan on this being the recorded block. And the only main reason we would change it is if it really just wasn't filling up. We don't want to only have 2 sessions in our best time block.
Yeah.
But maybe we can fill that up. So, okay. It might actually help push people to some of the other blocks and fill those up. I suppose the other thing around the schedule would be just the block E, A, B, C, D, if we even want to try that. This is the block that is at like 3 a.m. Central Time or in the US, and is primarily good, would be good in Europe, but we just haven't been able to get people participating. And I think unless we've got somebody enthusiastically advocating for that block, it's not going to happen. I've sort of tried mildly to push people in that direction, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it tends to be a Saturday morning when about the only day I managed to get a lie in. So
Actually, so one idea I think was to do that block on Friday instead of Saturday.
Yeah. I think there were some people that either thought that they could possibly do it if it was,
I think
if it was at work, or
right,
and also people on in Australia and
the problem with that is then we have this weird schedule where we have
Yeah.
we have that block on Friday. We have these other blocks on Friday, and then we skip that block on Saturday in Europe, and then we have our other blocks. Well, I guess that's no worse. It's no worse than what we have now. It's no worse than just skipping it. There would be one interruption either way, and it would be at the same time. Like if we just skip it all together, there's an interruption in the schedule. If we add it prior to block A, well, then there's only one interruption still. So why don't we get some feedback from our European? I'm primarily, well, this might be the worst time of the year to try that out because it's July and a lot of the Europeans have traditionally not been. It's been the worst of our three backdrop lives to get folks like Olaf and others. They're more likely to be on vacation. I don't know. Let's get feedback from them. I'm going to ask basically our European participants if they think they would be more likely to participate if we move that up to Friday their time, and if so, we can try it. But unless we get some people saying that they're actively going to participate, that we not do it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We would keep our welcome session at the same time it currently is, and otherwise the schedule would be the same. We would just be moving block D from Saturday to Friday. And we did try something like that, I think, in the very first backdrop live, but it might work better now. Okay. Anything else? We're actually out of time. Has anybody joined us? No, I'm going to quit sharing my screen. The real Nate Lampton is here.
Hello.
Hey, let's end the recording. Bye, everybody. Outreach meeting is officially over.
I put a comment in the chat. I put a comment on the chat about
Oops. Okay.
something that we could do to attract more people to office hours.
Okay.
So you can grab that, and look at
We're
it.
still recording. I did something weird and I can't find the shut off button now. There we go. There we go. I found it.
Fine, that's
But
the
I gotta
Zoom-
make sure-
the
yeah,
Zoom
both-
recording one.